Real Virginia is proudly produced by the Virginia Farm Bureau. For nearly a century, Farm Bureau has been a friend of the farm for all Virginians. Visit our website at vafb.com.
Hello everyone, and welcome to Real Virginia, a show about Virginia agriculture and the people who produce the wonderful local products we enjoy, brought to you by the Virginia Farm Bureau. Here's what's coming up on this week's show. Share the road with slow-moving vehicles. Learn tips to grow figs even in cooler climates. And visit Isle of Wight County to see this year's cotton harvest.
Home will always be Virginia, between the Blue Ridge and Chesapeake Bay, Atlantic to Appalachia. Home in my heart always.
Welcome back to Real Virginia, everyone. We're going home for the holidays this week to Amelia County, where my family raises beef cattle and hay on Spreading Acres Farm. Whether it's early in the morning, on the weekend, or Christmas Day itself, Virginia farmers are hard at work harvesting and hauling the local products we depend on. Join me as we learn how to share the road with them.
Every year, 15,000 farm vehicles are involved in crashes nationwide. Many of these accidents cause injuries, and some are fatal. Even though many Virginians love the country for its slower pace, some drivers aren't willing to wait for the farmers who provide our food, fiber, and fuel.
As a farmer, when I leave the house in the morning to move a wild piece of equipment, my wife always says, please be careful. Because I want to get back home to my wife and my son. I'd like to eat supper at home in the evenings. A lot of time I don't get to. But you'll pass someone on the road that maybe they're going to dinner and I'm holding them up. They don't realize that I have a place to be too. You know, I don't have a 9-to-5 job. I need to be where I'm going to be able to make my living, and I want to get back home to my family. So I'm no different than what they are, neither are any of the other farmers.
Along with the influx of new residents to rural communities, Shenandoah County farmer Glenn Keller explains that larger farms mean more encounters between drivers and slow-moving vehicles.
Farms have gotten bigger with less people to operate them. So now, instead of just being able to stay on this one farm, my operation is about 6-mile radius of this place. So there's 6 or 8 miles we have to go up the road with our wide equipment or tractor and trailers to get to the fields, whereas before my grandfather could just stay right on this place and I'd have to get on the road. So I guess as time goes by, to be profitable, you have to take on more acres with less labor. So it makes it tougher.
Keller has seen his fair share of close calls.
Some of the bad experiences we've had is with my pickup. When we feed cattle in the wintertime, I pull a 24-foot feed cart 6 miles up the road to feed my cattle. And every morning I try to time it so there's not as much traffic, but invariably somebody will get behind you, and in that 6-mile run, there's one place that I can pull over safely to let vehicles by. So we'll get to a blind hill and someone will follow you for a mile or so, and they finally get enough of it and want to go around, and they're usually upset and pick the wrong place. They'll go across the blind hill, and that endangers myself, them, and whoever may be coming toward them.
And those close calls aren't rare. Campbell County farmer Chris Thompson has seen it too.
When you see a piece of farm equipment, don't assume that if they swing one way that that's the way they're gonna turn. A lot of times if you're gonna make a right-hand turn and you're on that side of the road, you're gonna swing out wide to make that turn. Well, the instance here was my neighbor was moving hay. He swung out wide to make a right-hand turn. The person passed him on his right-hand side, which will be the passenger side, and wound up hitting the tractor. I mean, that's illegal right there. So just don't always assume that a piece of equipment is going to turn one way. Wait and let them get out the way and do what they have to do.
Thompson and Keller share some practical advice for what to do when you encounter a slow-moving vehicle.
When you see farm equipment moving up and down the road, don't always assume that person can see you, and don't pass just at an excessive rate of speed. You want to do it safely. Try to make contact, eye contact with that person that's in the equipment. If they give you the motion to go by, that's great. Do it safely. We can't always move this equipment off to the side of the road. We have to have a safe place to do it, because then it's slow moving. So for us to get back going, we've got to pull back out into traffic.
People need to be prepared for slow-moving vehicles. We have the triangle emblems that are slow-moving vehicle signs. You know, some people may not know what they are, but they're reflective, and that's supposed to be a universal. When you see that, you realize that this vehicle is moving slow.
Most farm equipment is traveling less than 20 miles per hour, far slower than a car going 55 miles per hour. Major L.T. Guthrie with the Campbell County Sheriff's Office puts a fine point on Keller and Thompson's advice.
If you have an encounter with farm equipment, please heed these advice carefully. In the course of my career, I've had the experience to see numerous accidents involving farm machinery. One common theme exists: a little patience and they might not have happened. Moving forward, I ask that you use patience on the highway, allow a safe distance between yourself and the farm machinery, and don't pass in an aggressive or unsafe manner. These tips will help keep you safe as well as the drivers of the farm equipment.
And Keller emphasizes that we're all in this together.
As a farmer, we want to work together with the community, because our job is to feed the community as well as feed ourselves. I don't like this saying, but at the end of the day, we're here to do a job, and our job is to help feed America. A lot of times I've been moving equipment down the road on a Saturday evening, and somebody passes me and they may give you a gesture that's not very nice, and they're on their way somewhere to eat a steak. Well, we're raising that steak for them. So, you know, be a little more patient. Know that we're out here doing our job. We're not trying to impede anyone. We're just trying to do our job and get home safely to our families.
Give farmers a break, slow down, and share the road. To learn more, visit vafb.com. For Real Virginia, I'm Elijah Griles.
Slow-moving vehicles include farm tractors and equipment that cannot operate over 25 miles an hour. Virginia law requires those slow-moving vehicles to display a triangular, bright orange, slow-moving vehicle emblem on the rear of the vehicle when traveling on a public highway at any time of day or night. When you see a slow-moving vehicle, slow down, increase your following distance, and be patient. Farmers want to safely get to where they're going, just like you do.
While Christmas songs may have you thinking about figgy pudding, Ed Olson with Virginia Cooperative Extension shares some tips for how to grow figs in marginal hardiness zones from the ground up.
Today we're at the home of Fairfax County Master Gardener Carlotta, and we also have with her her extension agent Adria. And today we're going to talk to Carlotta about growing figs in the garden. Carlotta, we're standing in front of a huge fig tree. How long has this been here?
Ed, I planted this tree in 2000, and I chose a fig tree specifically because I knew the kind of leafing that I would get. It would provide shade in the summertime to the front of my house. And I went online and I did some research. I found out that you need a southwestern exposure for the tree to keep it protected in the wintertime. And I also found out that the soil pH needs to be between 6 and 6.5. So if you're looking to check your soil pH, you might want to contact your local extension agent and they can help you out with that. So after I planted the tree, I was getting upwards of 30 pounds of figs after about 5 years, and every year I would can and produce fig preserves. But 10 years ago, we had a horrible winter, and so you see the damage right in here. It looks like it's burned, and that's where the winter really took its toll on the tree. We came out and we pruned it all back. And sure enough, the tree was established enough that it was able to come back. And you see these suckers still coming up, but the tree itself is almost as tall as the house. When it first died back in that one winter, it wasn't even as tall as the front window here in the bay. Since that time, the tree has grown, and this year alone, I harvested 40 pounds of figs and canned them.
Wow, 40 pounds of figs. So Adria, we're talking a little bit about winter protection. What can you tell us about protecting figs and growing figs in particularly this Northern Virginia area.
Yeah, absolutely. In Fairfax County, we're in Zone 7B
Okay.
here, so we're kind of marginal for fig survival in the winter months. But we've had a lot of mild winters since 2014, since the freeze that you had. But protecting figs in the winter months can be as easy as simply siting the tree on the southwest exposure of your house. If you don't have that ability to put it on that side of your house, or if it's just in a cold region, you can wrap the tree, pull those smaller branches together and wrap it with burlap or some frost cloth. That will allow moisture to get in and out. And then also filling that enclosure with shredded leaves. Those shredded leaves will insulate the tree. You could also use chicken wire and fill it with shredded leaves as well. Other things that you might look at your house, in your yard. Here there's a sidewalk that also insulates the tree. So there's hardscaping. There might be a brick wall that you could utilize to insulate and have heat that will radiate off of that. So those are some strategies you can use for figs. They're probably the easiest fruit tree to grow in Virginia. Everybody wants to have fruit trees in their yard, have something to eat, and figs are probably the easiest.
So Carlotta, segging from that, how easy is it to grow this fig? You talked about the soil pH and siting it properly. What other things do you do to take care of it?
I ignore it. I just kind of let nature take its course. I actually have to wait, or in the past I've had to wait till after school is out to prune it. So it's well into mid-June before I can prune it back. My husband is on me about making sure it doesn't go over the sidewalk and the neighbor's house and everything like that. But usually I just leave it alone, and then we start picking usually about mid-August is when the figs ripen up.
Okay. So Adria, how common is it to be able to go buy a fig tree to plant, or how might I be able to get one for my own yard?
Well, Ed, fig trees are readily available at most nurseries in this area and across Virginia. But also, when you're doing some pruning, some of the cuttings that you're doing, you can utilize those and root those cuttings and grow your own fig trees.
Okay.
Figs don't need to be grafted. They're not a fruit tree that need that grafting. And you can root those indoors or after you've done some pruning with some smaller branches that are maybe about the size
Something
of
like
a
this?
pencil, something like that, to maybe about the size of a highlighter.
Okay.
Okay? And honestly, once you get them rooted and potted, then you can take them and give them to friends and share them, or plant a whole nother row of figs in your yard.
Well, thank you so much, Carlotta and Adria, for sharing your expertise on growing figs in the home garden. For From the Ground Up, I'm Ed Olson. For more information about growing figs, reach out to a local master gardener. See you next time.
Chef Tammy's enjoying some time with her family, but in this week's throwback recipe, we learn how to make Santa's new favorite, dark chocolate cookies, from the heart of the home.
Hi, I'm Chef Tammy Brawley from The Green Kitchen. Welcome to Heart of the Home. Today I'm going to show you guys a very cool chocolate cookie I just discovered recently, and a couple of unique twists to it that I like to do. This cookie recipe actually calls for rye flour, which is pretty amazing. I'm a big rye grain fan. I think it's great. And we've got rye flour here, and we've got cocoa, chocolate chips, a little baking soda, some sugar, butter, vanilla extract. First thing you always want to do when you start with the cookies, you want to cream together the butters and the sugars. We've got brown sugar and we've got white sugar. And in this case, we want to add the butter. You pretty much want to do this at room temperature butter, which is better. We'll put that right into the mixer. You want to use your beater blade. Creaming butters and sugars can sometimes take a while, but if you've left the butter out for a little while, it should not take that long. You want it to come into a nice cohesive mixture. While it's blending, you want to go ahead and add about a teaspoon or so of vanilla extract. So we're going to add about a half a teaspoon of vanilla extract. That's going to blend. While that's creaming in the mixer, you want to go ahead and whisk together your dry ingredients. We've got the rye flour, we've got cocoa powder, I really do like to use a special dark cocoa because I think it gives it a more pronounced chocolate flavor. And we have baking soda that we want to add in there. And now one of the killer ingredients that I've discovered recently is a chocolate sea salt. Yes, you heard that right, chocolate salt. There's a franchise out there that sells these particular specialty salts. We want to put about 1/8 of a teaspoon into our mix here. I'm actually going to go ahead and add just a little bit more to our blended mix, the butter and the sugars there. Then you want to whisk together your dry ingredients. You want to take a look at what's in the mixer bowl. You really want to make sure it does blend well together. So I'm going to actually take it off for just a moment. I'm going to come through. Now you can see some of the ingredients that are still on our blade. So you want to actually get those down a little bit. Mix that in just a little bit more. I can feel by the way it feels on my spatula that it is nice and mixed. I'm going to come back to the bowl. So we're going to add our dry ingredients here. Coming together quite nicely. And now the last thing I want to add is actually the miniature chocolate chips. I will say that when I first tried this recipe, I used the larger chips, and it didn't come out so well when you bake the cookies, so I really prefer the smaller ones. So we're going to add those in there. All right, and now it's blended very nicely together. I'm going to take my bowl off, and I'm going to get the mix together here. I'm going to pull it onto the parchment paper. Now you just kind of, you can manipulate the parchment paper back and forth. You want to kind of squeeze it, roll it into a log. All right, so we're going to roll it up, twist the ends, like that old Christmas candy your grandmother used to have on her table. You want to put this into the refrigerator for 2 hours. All right, so our dough has been in the refrigerator for 2 hours. We pulled it out. We're actually going to now cut our cookies and bake them in the oven. We unroll the dough. I like to use a serrated knife to cut it. I think it's just works a little bit better. Cut down. You want to cut probably about 1/4 of an inch, maybe a little smaller. I wouldn't go any bigger of the cookie. Depending on how thick the dough is, you might just want to saw down through it as opposed to a saw back and forth. All right, we're going to place them on our parchment lined sheet tray. And we're going to come back with some more of that delicious chocolate sea salt. We're going to sprinkle this over the top of the cookies. You know, years ago it used to be that salted caramel was all the rage, and over the years I've determined that salt and chocolate just work so well together. So I really like doing this. So we're going to pop this into a 375-degree oven for 20 minutes. All right, so the cookies went into the oven for about 18 to 20 minutes. I did have something sort of unexpected happen, and this is actually a good learning teaching point for you guys. These cookies actually spread. They're really not supposed to do that. They are supposed to stay in a shape, and they actually come out more of a firm, like a shortbread cookie. And a lot of times what that's a function of is if you have left the dough out of the refrigerator too long, the butter will soften up, and that can cause this spreading issue. Or if you have not left the dough in the refrigerator long enough. The very first time I tried this recipe, I did leave the dough in the refrigerator overnight. So when I cut it the next day for baking, they did maintain a shortbread, smaller cookie. That's not to say that you can't eat these. These are very delicious. In this case, they're warm. I think I might go pour a glass of milk. So what we're actually going to do is we're going to come through with our spatula. I decided to take them off like this. Sometimes you will see the cookie form, and you can use your spatula to do the definition. So we're going to put them on a nice, beautiful platter. And there you have it. Chocolate rye cookies topped with a chocolate sea salt. I'm Chef Tammy Brawley from the Green Kitchen. Join us next time on Heart of the Home.
Cotton farming kicks off with spring planting. But the real magic begins about 2 months later when tiny flower buds called squares appear. On its first day, the cotton flower blooms white, then shifts to pink and deepens to dark pink before falling away. This color change signals pollination, and the cotton's growth journey is underway. Inside each boll, fibers start forming around seeds, expanding as the boll ripens and turns brown. Finally, the pressure builds so much that the boll bursts open, revealing the fluffy white cotton we all recognize.
Whether it's your favorite Christmas socks, a cozy sweater, or the fake snow around your Christmas village, cotton is everywhere. What you may not know is that it's grown right here in Virginia.
Every fall, fields across southeastern Virginia turn white. Not from an early snow, though. It's fluffy cotton ready to be picked. We visited Isle of Wight County to learn about this year's cotton harvest.
This cotton here on this farm was probably planted about the 8th of May. We struggle always in this part of the world to get a crop started. And then all of a sudden, once you get it started, you fight sometimes to slow it down. And so we use, variety of nutrient management, plant growth regulators through that whole process to try to get a crop where we can get it to mature out in a timely fashion like we want it.
Virginia is the northernmost cotton-producing state, and weather can be a challenge for both planting and harvest.
We're about 2.5 weeks after defoliation. We're in the early part of harvest, and this cotton here is just opening up pretty decent. It's not quite where we want it to be, but we're getting so late in the season, we've kind of pushing ahead on harvest. So hopefully we're going to get a good percentage of it.
Defoliation requires spraying plant hormones on the cotton to make it lose its leaves, something Philip's son Alec does in an impressively large sprayer. In 2024, cotton was raised on 91,000 acres in Virginia, with most production in Southampton and Isle of Wight counties and the city of Suffolk. Philip then checks the moisture with a cotton grower's hack.
We just came through a really heavy dew last night and a heavy frost, and this cotton has to get dried out a certain amount to be able to harvest it. And most farmers that I know, most people I know, the quickest way they're going to tell you if that cotton's getting dry and ready for harvest in a day's time is taking a bite of the seed. We're not eating the seed, but we're putting it in here and biting down on it. And for me, it's a very audible cracking sound when it's ready.
Then it's time to join Bobby Winslow in the cotton picker. This behemoth machine uses rotating spindles that span 8 rows to pull in the cotton plants and grab the fluffy cotton bolls, which are blown into the back of the machine and compressed into large round modules. Even with advanced machinery, efficiency is a delicate balance.
And so you're trying to get to a point where your cotton is still on the plant, hasn't started to fall out yet, but fluffed out enough that the mechanical pickers can grab that piece of cotton and pull it out. But we've gone through some weather here recently, and as you can see, as I pull that out, I left some behind. It's stuck a little bit right in there, down in that bowl. And a lot of that's from a process of some rainy, drizzly weather. And so this plant did not, what they call hard lock. It did open up, but it is kind of stuck in there kind of tight.
The roughly 6,000-pound round modules of cotton are stacked in neat rows, ready for the cotton gin.
Once a grower has harvested his crop and he's built his modules in the field, he'll call us and let us know where they are. We'll send a truck to go pick those up and bring them back to the gin. We'll put them into the gin and do some coarse cleaning, some drying, prep the cotton for the ginning piece of it. And then once the cotton is ginned and the seed is separated from the lint, then it'll go through some additional cleaning to make sure that all the undesirable, or at least as much of the undesirable material is taken out of it as necessary to, again, provide the best quality on the end product that we can. Once it's finished being cleaned, it's then pressed into a bale, and the bale is then packaged and given an identification number, and then the bale is taken to a warehouse where we'll store the cotton for the producer until which time he's ready to sell it.
Chris Alphin and his cousin Bruce Alphin are the third generation of their family's ginning business. Bruce explains how buying American-grown cotton supports ethical sourcing and sustainability.
The PBI is the number that is assigned to each bale. It's kind of like a social security number. It's tied to everything. So with that information, you can track from field to who ginned it, to what mills it went to, through to the process, to the end product of a shirt or fabric. When we are talking sustainability, both from the farming practices to everything is ethically and legally done through the process, from the mill spinning the fiber to the Ralph Lauren who's buying the fabric to cut and make, all the way up to when your wife or you goes through the store and is picking up the clothing. If it's been made with American cotton, then that company does have true visibility all the way down to the soil.
The Alphin family helped reestablish the Virginia cotton industry.
In the 70s, my grandparents and our parents were in the grain business. And towards the latter part of the 80s, early part of the 90s, growers began looking for an alternative to corn and beans. And the soil type in southeastern Virginia is very conducive to a higher probability of growing a profitable crop of cotton versus some of the other competing crops. The problem was that the closest gins were 50 to 60 miles away, and transportation costs and effort to get the cotton from the farm to the gin almost made growing cotton in this part of the state not very feasible. There was a little bit of a problem here, and so the solution would be to put a gin in the area. And so in 1992, the original gin was built in a warehouse. And then as cotton acres began to grow a little more, the next gin was built in Southampton County in Franklin, Virginia in 1995.
Once it's ginned, Virginia cotton enters the global supply chain.
And the warehouse will prepare that shipment for the buyer. And then the truck will pick it up and take it to a domestic spinning mill, or the truck will pick it up on a container and take it to the port for overseas business.
The current market price of cotton is 62 cents per pound, well below profitability. Edwards says only 1.5 of the 14 million bales of cotton grown in the U.S. is milled domestically.
It's probably 0.6 of a pound of cotton in this shirt. So if you can imagine this shirt here, it's a work shirts, it's probably $39, $40, and it's got, right now it's got about 36, 37 cents worth of cotton to the farmer in this $40 shirt. So you can see how little we're getting out of the product. Most of it's in manufacturing, shipping.
But despite the challenges, Edwards says it's more than a job.
Farming is more of a lifestyle than a job, but obviously everybody wants to eat and pay the bills, so it's important. The economic side is extremely important, but you got to have somebody that's committed to bad weather and the wrong time of day and early mornings and late evenings.
Whether you're looking for new sheets or a new shirt, check the label for 100% cotton. To learn more, visit thefabricofourlives.com. For Real Virginia, I'm Elijah Griles. We're so glad you could join us to celebrate all the bounty Virginia has to offer. From the kitchen to your home and garden to our beautiful wide open spaces, we're proud to say that this is Real Virginia. For everyone from the Virginia Farm Bureau, thanks for watching. Make it a great week.
Home will always be Virginia, between the Blue Ridge and Chesapeake Bay.